On Thursday, I had a chance to catch up with Greg Brosh of FantasyKnuckleheads.com. A little technical difficulties prevented us from getting the interview up for you. On Thursday, Greg talked about who he would have started with the Packers and Bears and other matchups you should consider this week. Greg Brosh, FantasyKnuckleheads.com on the Sports Buffet podcast. Always love catching up with people to talk fantasy football with, and there's nobody better out there than Greg Brosh, FantasyKnuckleheads.com, joins me on the Sports Buffet podcast. And Greg, now that we have Thursday night games, it makes things a little bit more difficult, interesting. I don't know, really. How do you think Thursday night games affect fantasy players, if at all?
Well, I know a lot of people are saying to bench Rodgers tonight because, you know, the Packers are playing on a short week. They're coming from San Francisco. They didn't exactly play as well as everybody hoped against the 49ers. But how can you bench Rodgers? I mean, you can't bench Rodgers. You can't bench Jordy Nelson. You can't bench any of your studs, even though it's a short week. And that's one of the things I've been trying to tell people is, you know, even though you've got guys who didn't exactly perform all that great, don't bench your studs, especially full weeks too.
Week one thoughts. Anything worry you in terms of somebody underperforming that this could be a trend?
The one guy that worries me a lot is actually Chris Johnson from the Titans. I envisioned him as being a bounce-back candidate after last year. As you know, the holdout, and then he held out for more money, finally came back, didn't perform like we thought he would last year. I thought he was going to look really good this year. Only had 11 carries, and unfortunately it looks like the run blocking for the offensive line isn't going to do him any favors. I read a statistic that he only had 2 really good run blocks on the 11 carries that he has. I put Johnson again as the top 10. Hopefully he can bounce back this week against let's see who they are playing, the Chargers, who held Darren McFadden in check on the ground. If Chris Johnson doesn't come up with a good game this week, I really worry about his performance in the long run.
You know, I think with the receivers, it's always kind of weird because there can be a game to where somebody just doesn't get as many looks or, you know, whatnot, this and that. Anything worry you about Wes Welker in week one?
You know, it's interesting. I actually posted a comment on our Facebook page, and I said, you know, is this New England trying to phase out Wes Welker in the offense so they don't have to bring him back next year? And a lot of people said, yeah, I don't know if that's true or not. Obviously, that's just speculation. But, you know, they're going to use a lot of their tight ends, which they did on Sunday. They used Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. They both scored. Now they have Brandon Lloyd. They have Stephen Ridley now, who looks like he's going to be a complete back for the first time since Corey Dillon. I think if Wes Welker doesn't have at least a semi-decent game this week, I think there's going to be cause for worry because maybe there's a chance that the Patriots are just kind of trying to phase him out so they don't have to pay him the big bucks next year and either re-sign him on the cheap or just let him go.
You know, a guy, just from a personal standpoint, who I own that kind of worried me a little bit, but it's a guy that you can't bench, and you might even know where I'm going with this, Michael Vick. When you throw 4 picks against the Browns, that kind of concerns me. But at the same time, you bench Michael Vick, he goes off for 30 or 40, then you really are going to sit in the corner for a week with the dunce cap on. What about Michael Vick would worry you or not worry you?
He's not worrying me right now. I think one of the big things is, and Andy Z said this in the press conference, is that he was rusty. I mean, don't forget, he got injured, I believe, in the first preseason game, either the first or second preseason game, I don't remember which one, and he didn't really play a lot in the preseason. I think a lot of it was rust, and don't forget, I mean, they played in Cleveland, and, you know, Vic's not worrying me right now. They play Baltimore, but they're playing at home. Cincinnati actually didn't look that bad passing against the Ravens secondary. I think Vic's going to have a better game. I think if he comes up short again, if they win by a little, or even if they lose, and he throws 2 to 3 picks, I think it's definitely going to be a cause for concern. But right now, I think now that he has a game under his belt, I think he's going to perform a lot better this week.
There was a guy several years ago, and I cannot remember his name. I know he played for Cleveland. He had like 3 touchdowns and 100 and some yards the first week, and people went crazy picking him up, and he did nothing the rest of the year. Could Kevin Ogletree or somebody like that be that first week hot guy that everybody wants to pick up, and then they're just going to fizzle?
Well, I think the problem with Kevin Ogletree is he was going up against a really banged-up Giants secondary, and let's face it, the Giants secondary didn't play that good last year. They relied heavily on their front seven to get pressure on the quarterback. And with Kevin Ogletree, I mean, don't forget, he's behind Miles Austin, he's behind Des Bryant, and then he's going to be behind Jason Witten once he gets fully healthy from his swing injury. A lot of people are comparing him now to Warren Robinson last year, who had a big season. I say pick Kevin Ogletree up. There's going to be a chance that he's probably going to start. Miles Austin and Des Bryant have both had injury history, so there is a chance he could get a start maybe for 3 or 4 games throughout the season. I only say pick him up if you have a roster spot to burn. Maybe if you pick up a Santana Moss, who isn't going to be a big part of the Redskins offense, or somebody like that. I don't want to pick him up as a wide receiver 3 right yet, because he's going to get inconsistent numbers. That number 3 spot on a pass-heavy team kind of worries me. And then you have a guy like Stephen Hill, who is an every-down wide receiver, had a big game against the Bills last week, but the Jets like to run a lot. So is he going to have consistent numbers? I think the only guy right now, and I really like this guy a lot, I think the only guy, the wide receiver, is going to be Patrick Cobb. Last week we saw him line up at wide receiver. He's a special teams guy, great returner, and plus they line him up in the backfield too. I think we're going to start seeing him as the possible Percy Harvin / Darren Sproles in that offense. And don't forget the Packers, I mean, they love to throw the ball so they can spread the love around. If I'm going to pick up a guy this week and start him as a possible wide receiver 3 or flex option, it's going to be Patrick Cobb.
Before we get into some Week 2 projections, prognostications, last question about Week 1. Was the performance by RG3 in New Orleans a case of fool's gold, or could that be pretty legit?
Well, I mean, playing in New Orleans, playing against a high-powered offense, scoring 40 points isn't easy when you play the Saints. I think he's legit. I think it's kind of early to crown him the new Cam Newton, but from what I saw, I mean, this guy looks great in the pocket. I know right now a lot of people are trying to trade him or trying to trade him away for a top option. I'm going to give him 1 more week. I don't think he's full sold. I think he'll put up consistent numbers, but I don't know if he's going to do what he did on Week 1. I think it's one of those situations where you don't know how the guy is going to play. I think once defenses start catching up, I think he might come down a little bit, but RG3 is definitely a guy to keep an eye on. I wouldn't start him this week, though. I know a lot of people are thinking about it, but I might give him another week to anoint him as a QB1.
Is he Cam Newton, though, or is he Michael Vick? Because I think Cam Newton is a little bit more durable. Michael Vick, obviously, is not 100% durable, and Cam Newton's a small sample size for me to throw out the he's durable statement because he lasted 1 year without getting hurt. But where do you see RG3 falling in terms of an injury concern? Where does he reach on your barometer?
The one thing I compare to RG3 is I consider him a Michael Vick with a better arm, a younger Michael Vick with a better arm. We don't know how his durability is going to be. We didn't know how Michael Vick's durability was going to be until he came to the NFL. Obviously, if the pocket collapses, he's going to run for yards. Hopefully he doesn't do what Mike Vick does and try to get the extra yards while taking a shot or two to the chest or to the leg. We're just going to have to wait and see, but I think he's a cross-breeder of Cam Newton and Michael Vick, but he just reminded me a little bit more of, like I said, Michael Vick with a better ability to pass downfield.
Week 2, just throw some names out to me, regardless of the position, of some guys you really like.
Well, let's see. Obviously, tonight we've got the Packers and the Bears. I really like Matt Forte. I really like Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Cobb, who I mentioned. I might fit Cedric Benson again. The Bears played pretty good against the run last week against the Colts. Last year, I believe they ranked number 5 against the run, so I might bench Cedric Benson again. Or if you have to, play him in a flex spot. Let's see, going down the list. I really like Benjamin Greenhouse this week playing up against the Browns. LaShawn McCoy had a really good game against the Browns' run defense, and their run defense is kind of banged up. And Jarvis Greenhouse really looked good last week, but don't forget, it looks like Bernard Scott is going to come back, but I think Jarvis Greenhouse could have a good game. Another guy I like in Minnesota is Kyle Rudolph against the Colts. I was high on this guy in the preseason. I really think he has a chance to be a tight end 1 down the road. Right now, he's more of a tight end 2 or a starter in 2 tight end leagues. Christian Ponder really liked this kid. He really made a couple really good catches. It's interesting in Jacksonville what's going to happen with Blaine Davis because he looked great last week. I think Mercedes Lewis is somebody that you want to keep an eye on. 2 years ago, I believe he had over 10 touchdowns. I believe 11 touchdowns. So keep an eye on him. defenses. New England defense played really good last week against the Titans. I like them as a sleeper option against Arizona that doesn't know if they're going to play Kevin Cobb or they're going to play John Skelton. I think Kevin Cobb's going to play it, but let's be honest, Bob, it really doesn't matter. I think they're both pretty bad. So New England defense could be something to look at. And let's see, going down the line, Danny Amendola in a PPR league. I like him against Washington. He took up where he left off before he got injured last year. And those are a couple of guys that I really like this week.
Greg, tell me what FantasyKnuckleheads.com can offer us.
FantasyKnuckleheads.com can offer you plenty of articles. We have running back rankings, wide receiver rankings. We have rankings for IDP, rankings for all offensive positions. If you missed out on our yearly $24.95 package, you can come on for $5.95. You get a whole month's worth of advice in our forum. You get well, obviously you're not going to use cheat sheets, but you get a player tracker. Go in the forum, ask questions away. You can ask as many questions as you want up to 3 teams. And also don't forget we have a Google Plus page. Make sure you check out Fantasy Knuckleheads for that. We do a show every Sunday morning from 11:30 to 12:30 p.m. or a.m. Eastern, right before the game. And that's it. We just offer a little bit of everything. So make sure you check out FantasyKnuckleheads.com. And like I said last time, don't be an idiot. Be a knucklehead, Bob.
I always believe in that, Greg. That's my new slogan since I've started talking to you. So I appreciate the time as always and can't wait till we can do it again.
Excellent. Well, Bob, you enjoy your week too. Make sure you get those waiver wires in, and don't forget everybody out there to start your Bears and Packers. There's nothing like forgetting about an early game and keeping guys like Aaron Rodgers on the bench.